In this video, I'm going to tell you why war is the most expensive business humanity ever invented. If you don't have time, just hit play, put it on loudspeaker, and listen. Behind the scenes, industries profit manufacturers, contractors, technology companies, turning conflict into one of the world's biggest money machines. But the real cost is paid by ordinary people, families displaced, futures lost, lives changed forever. So why does war continue? Number 1. Opening line. The price of a single shot. Think about this. A single Tomahawk cruise missile costs roughly $2 million. That's the price of building several schools or funding thousands of scholarships. But that missile gets fired, explodes, and disappears in seconds. Now multiply that by thousands of missiles, millions of bullets, and countless bombs dropped in any modern conflict. Every trigger pull, every launch, every explosion is money vanishing into smoke and rubble. War doesn't just destroy lives and cities, it incinerates wealth at a scale almost impossible to comprehend. A single shot might seem small, but when you understand that modern wars can cost trillions of dollars, you realize we're not talking about battles anymore. We're talking about the most wasteful, most expensive enterprise humans have ever created. And someone, somewhere, is paying that price. 2. Why wars are financial machines, not just battles. Wars aren't fought with courage alone. They run on money, and massive amounts of it. Think of war as a giant industrial operation that never sleeps. Soldiers need salaries, food, uniforms, and medical care. Tanks need fuel. Jets need maintenance. Communications require satellites and technology. Intelligence agencies operate around the clock. Logistics networks span continents, moving supplies to front lines. Every second of war requires funding. The U.S. spent over $2 trillion on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan across 2 decades. That's more than the GDP of most countries. Wars are financial machines because they consume resources constantly and exponentially. Unlike a business that produces something valuable, war produces destruction, which then requires even more money to fix. It's a financial black hole that sucks in national budgets, loans, and future generations' taxes, period. Warfare has become industrialized spending on a scale that dwarfs almost any other human activity. 3. The true cost of building an army. Before a single shot is fired, building a military force costs astronomical sums. An F-35 fighter jet costs about $80 million per unit, and that's just to buy it. Operating it costs tens of thousands of dollars per flight hour. A single aircraft carrier can cost $13 billion to build and requires thousands of personnel to operate. Soldiers need years of training, specialized equipment, body armor, weapons, and vehicles. Developing new military technology takes decades and billions in research. Nuclear submarines, stealth bombers, drone systems, cyber warfare capabilities, each represents enormous investments. Nations maintain these forces even during peacetime, which means the cost never stops. The U.S. military budget alone exceeds $800 billion annually, more than the next 10 countries combined. That's money pulled from healthcare, education, infrastructure, and social programs. Building an army isn't just about patriotism or defense. It's about sustaining a permanent, incredibly expensive industrial complex that exists whether war happens or not. 4. Who pays for wars? The hidden wallets behind every conflict. Taxpayers foot the bill, but they rarely see the full invoice. Governments fund wars through 3 main channels: current taxes, borrowed money, and cutting other programs. When the U.S. invaded Iraq, it didn't raise taxes, it borrowed trillions, adding to national debt that future generations will repay with interest. Countries issue war bonds, take loans from international banks, or print money, which causes inflation that quietly steals purchasing power from ordinary citizens. Hidden costs include veterans' healthcare for decades after conflicts end, interest on war debt, and opportunity costs, the hospitals, schools, and infrastructure that never get built because money went to missiles instead. Soldiers pay with their lives and trauma. Civilians in war zones pay with destroyed homes, lost livelihoods, and shattered communities. Meanwhile, the economic burden gets distributed across society in ways most people never recognize, buried in national budgets and long-term debt that won't be fully paid off for generations. 5. The industries that get rich while nations bleed. While countries drain their treasuries, certain industries profit immensely from war. Defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman see stock prices soar during conflicts. They sell weapons, aircraft, surveillance systems, and mercenary services at enormous markups. Private military companies charge governments premium rates for security and logistics. Oil companies often benefit from geopolitical instability that drives up prices. Reconstruction firms win lucrative contracts to rebuild what was destroyed. Banks profit from financing war through loans and managing the flow of military spending. Even cybersecurity and technology companies cash in on warfare's digital dimensions. During the Iraq War, contractor profits reached into hundreds of billions. These companies lobby governments to maintain high military spending and sometimes even influence foreign policy decisions. War creates a perverse economic incentive structure where destruction becomes profitable for a select few, while the many bear the costs. It's not a conspiracy. It's simply how war has become a business model. 6. Aftermath economics. Rebuilding becomes a business. When the bombs stop falling, the real financial burden often begins. Destroyed cities need reconstruction, which costs multiples of what the original infrastructure cost to build. Iraq's reconstruction was estimated at over $100 billion, though corruption and inefficiency meant much of that money disappeared with little to show for it. Land must be cleared of unexploded ordnance. Hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, and power grids need complete rebuilding. Refugees need resettlement. Traumatized populations require mental health services for decades. War crimes tribunals, peace negotiations, and new governmental structures all require funding. Ironically, many of the same companies that profited from war win reconstruction contracts, creating a full-cycle profit model. Countries like Germany after World War II or Vietnam after the 1970s spent generations recovering economically. The Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe cost over $100 billion in today's dollars. Rebuilding isn't just construction, it's recreating entire economic systems, which makes it perhaps even more expensive than the destruction itself. 7. Final punch. Why war remains the world's most profitable disaster. Here's the twisted truth. War continues partly because it's profitable for those with power. Despite its horrific human cost and economic irrationality for nations, war serves the interests of military-industrial complexes, political leaders seeking authority, and industries that thrive on conflict. It's the only business where failure costs more money, which means more contracts and more profits. A war that ends quickly isn't as valuable as one that drags on. Modern conflicts in the Middle East have lasted decades, generating trillions in spending and enormous profits for contractors. Governments fear looking weak, so they maintain massive military budgets, regardless of actual threats. Voters often support military spending out of fear or patriotism, not recognizing they're funding the world's most expensive failure. Until we collectively recognize that war's economic model is fundamentally broken, destroying wealth rather than creating it, it will continue. War remains profitable because we've built entire economies around it, and dismantling that system requires courage that most nations haven't found. That's why, despite its astronomical costs, war remains humanity's most expensive and most enduring business. So here's the bottom line. We call war many things: necessary evil, patriotic duty, national defense. But strip away the rhetoric and you'll see what it really is. The most financially catastrophic business model ever created. We've built entire economies around destruction, where profits soar as nations crumble, where a handful get rich while millions pay the price in blood, debt, and broken futures. Think about it. Trillions spent on weapons that exist only to destroy. Trillions more borrowed from our children's future to rebuild what we just demolished. Meanwhile, hospitals go unfunded, schools decay, and infrastructure crumbles, all because we're too busy financing the next conflict. The most disturbing truth? War persists not because it works, but because it pays. Defense contractors, weapons manufacturers, and private military companies have turned human suffering into quarterly earnings. They've convinced us that endless military spending equals safety, when in reality, it's just endless spending. We've normalized insanity. We've accepted that it's reasonable to spend more on a single fighter jet than on thousands of teachers' salaries. We've agreed that bombing nations and then billing taxpayers to rebuild them makes sense. But here's what should haunt us. Every dollar spent on war is a dollar stolen from humanity's potential. Imagine if those trillions went to curing diseases, ending poverty, or reversing climate change. Imagine the world we could build with the wealth we currently set on fire. War isn't just expensive, it's the worst investment humanity has ever made. And until we recognize that peace isn't just morally right, but economically brilliant, we'll keep funding the one business that guarantees everyone loses. The question isn't whether we can afford peace, it's whether we can afford one more war. Thank you so much for watching. If this opened your eyes to the true cost of conflict, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're diving deep into the topics that matter, the truths that get buried, and the systems that shape our world. More eye-opening content is coming your way. Subscribe now, and let's keep learning together. See you in the next video.